Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Nick, with Phil Money.
Phil Money.
Today we're going to talk about our memories with renting horror films and just like videos in general from, the mom and pop rental stores. Hollywood Video was always
Hollywood
a big
Video
one.
Video is my favorite.
Hollywood Video, at least from what I can remember, as opposed to like Blockbuster, Hollywood Video had a huge selection of horror films.
Horror movies.
And not just the basic ones.
And the good thing
either.
is, the way that ours was designed, as soon as you walked in there, so you got the checkout counter here, you got the horror section like right there, and then everything else is like you had your comedies, I think, and your dramas.
Oh, yeah,
middle,
yeah.
And your new releases on the far end.
Well, because most places they have the basic ones like Friday the 13th, Halloween, things like that. But they would get ones that were B movies.
Yep.
Ones that were independent films, things that you either had never heard of before, or ones that you couldn't get a hold of normally.
Well, and then when we were eating lunch earlier, we were talking about the Night of the Creeps. And how I pointed out that cover of the original cover of Night of the Creeps, not the new one for the poster work for Scream Factory's release, but that cover, I always remember seeing that when I was younger, and I was like, it looks, I don't know, should I rent it? It looks like a cool cover, and then I finally just jumped the gun and rented that movie, and I was glad I did. It's a cult classic.
Some of the ones that I remember renting was like Children of the Corn, the first couple.
Yep.
Also, Critters. Was it called Critters?
Yeah, there was four Critter movies.
Yeah. For some reason, I mean, yeah, you can go onto different stores now and you see the covers, but to us, renting movies back in the 90s and, late 80s, when you go into a video store, the cover's what sold you.
Right. And, you always looked at the description of the movie on the back of the
because
case.
Essentially, the cover was kind of like the movie poster when you went to see it in the theater. It was like, it drew your attention to it, and you'd read the synopsis, and because most of the time, even though movies weren't expensive to rent, back then it was.
Yeah.
We'd maybe get 2 to 3 movies a weekend, and that's what we had to watch.
Well, I don't remember when they started this, but I remember when Hollywood Video had the 5 for 5 for 5 deal. So you got 5 movies, 5 nights for $5.
And that was great.
And that's when I rented a lot of my my horror movies at that time.
The Leprechaun. I remember the cover for that one. I was like, what is this? And then I watched it, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's an evil leprechaun. And do you remember, like, people at the video store, they would have, like, Jan's picks?
Yeah,
the employees would have their picks.
Up at the front by the checkout counter.
And I remember one guy who worked at our local Westville Video. His name was Nick. And he would have, like, this list of movies that would be, like, Nick's picks for this month. And it'd be, like, Tremors 2, Back to School. It would always be like these movies that were just classics.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they do at Barnes & Noble's where they have the the staff picks.
Yeah.
Hey, rent this movie. It's pretty good.
The one thing that I don't think that a lot of people realize, and is kind of lost in translation now, with the way that they release horror movies now, when you watch the trailer, we talked about this earlier, they reveal too much in the trailers.
Yeah, they do. I saw a lot of people complaining on Twitter about the Pet Sematary remake trailer, which I didn't have a gripe about it because, you know what's going to happen, except they kind of did a role reversal there. I won't give that away if you haven't seen the trailer yet, but, the original pretty much followed Stephen King's story. But I will say that Stephen King, he did tweet that he saw the movie and he said it's scary. So, whether you're pissed off by the trailer, I would say probably check out the movie. The master himself that wrote the story said it seemed like it was a pretty good movie.
Well, with the successful remake of Halloween, do you think that will usher in for them finally investing money into a new Friday the 13th?
I would hope so. I don't know. I mean,
because they had a script. They lost the rights to it again. They had so many years to do it.
It's just gonna be a matter of if Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham, settle their beefs, and to get something made. That's the only way it's gonna get made. Because there was that rumor of LeBron James was wanting to produce a Friday the 13th movie. I don't foresee that happening. But
I don't see that either.
The only way that a Friday the 13th movie will get made again is if Victor Miller, who was the writer of the original, and Sean Cunningham, who directed the original, are gonna, settle their differences. They had the whole court mess, so, Victor Miller basically owns the right to the Jason Voorhees name. I think he owned the right to Camp Crystal Lake, that name. So even if they were to make a Friday the 13th movie without his blessing, like, how would they do that without using Jason Voorhees or Camp Crystal Lake? I mean, if they did a reboot, they'd have to do a whole new thing, whether it's at a camp or not. I mean, they could do a camp setting. They have that right to do so, I believe. But, to hardcore fans, would it be the same? I don't know.
Well, any time you have, like, when I used to walk into, whether it was like a movie rental or like even Suncoast, or like our local music place that would have VHS and stuff.
Yep.
The main reason what would make me want to buy a movie, even if I hadn't seen it before, for me to shell out money at that time, not only did the cover have to intrigue me, but the story itself, how it was written on the back. It didn't matter to me if someone had written on the back, this movie was given 5 stars because of this. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe 60% of the country liked it, but the other half thought it was, a turd. And there's lots of movies that have come out that, the critics say, oh, it's awful. It's like Hereditary. That movie, I paid my money to go see it. Everybody's like, oh, it's the scariest movie in years. You're going to love it. Mm-hmm. I went there with a friend of mine. 20 minutes into it, if it wasn't the fact that I paid my money to get in there, I would have left. It was that bad.
Yeah, I finally rented that on Vudu, and it was okay.
There were parts, to me it wasn't scary, it was creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we talked about the cycle, where you had, of course, the original Universal Monsters. That wasn't technically horror, but it was monster movies. That was what it was called, monster movies. And then you went into, of course, with Halloween, those were the birth of the slasher films.
Yep.
And, that lasted until the mid-90s. And then you went into what I would call I don't even know what you would classify that genre.
Well, you had your like early 2000s. You had your Asian remakes, Americanized remakes.
Yeah.
You had your Grudge and
that's what the Grudge, the Ring, things like that. They were creepy, like entity type horror films.
Yeah, and then it moved to your Saw and your Hostel.
Yeah, it was gore.
They call that torture.
Yeah, torture. Yeah, basically.
And then after that, I mean, what do we get into? It's kind of a mixed bag now.
After that, it was pretty much like constant remakes.
Well, a lot of paranormal stuff.
Yeah, it was
paranormal.
It was Ghost. Everything
hauntings,
was demons.
Something possessed.
Yeah, something possessed. It was like literally every movie that came out. It was possession of this person or the exorcism of Billy Bob. It was just a constant cycle. And now, what do you think we're at now?
Well, I think with the success of the It remake and the Halloween remake, I mean, this year alone, we have a remake of Pet Sematary. We have a remake of Child's Play. That's what I foresee. I'm assuming we're going to get a Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I guarantee we're probably going to get another Texas Chainsaw type movie.
I hope not.
They're supposed to be working on a Halloween 2. They got a writer, and supposedly Jamie Lee Curtis and the other Judy Greer, and the granddaughter, Andy Matichak, I think is her name.
Yeah.
They're all supposed to be signing off on the sequel, but it's a new writer. I can't remember the guy's name offhand, but it's not going to be Danny McBride and David Gordon Green, and they don't know if David Gordon Green's going to be back directing, but that's another story. But we're going to get all these rehashes, so it's kind of like what happened in the early and mid 2000s. You had a lot of remakes. You had the Prom Night remake. You had your Texas Chainsaw. You had
13 Ghosts.
13 Ghosts. You had Nightmare on Elm Street. You had Rob Zombie's Halloween movies.
Yeah.
You had, Dawn of the Dead remake. Days of the Dead. Multiple remakes.
What did you think of the new Evil Dead that they did?
I watched it in theaters and I thought it was okay, but I haven't watched it since then.
I thought it was creepier.
I own it. I just haven't watched it.
I mean, truly, I like the original better, but this one was creepier. It was very creepy.
Yeah. Speaking of the Evil Dead, that's back to the the video store thing. That's one thing that always caught my eye was the Evil Dead movies.
With Bruce Campbell on the front with the boomstick.
All that. Yeah. Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
But like Evil Dead 2 with the skeleton face. That was movie covers that always caught my eye. The Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
The Sleepaway Camp movies.
Yes.
Those always caught my eye. Return of the Living Dead. That was a movie I rented.
What was that? What was it called? Ice Cream? You Scream or something? It was the Ice Cream Man on the front of it.
It was. Damn it! It's Ron Howard's brother, Clint Howard.
Yeah, I remember that cover
but...
because he had an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
And it had like blood dripping off of it, and I remember that cover very vividly.
The Video Dead. That was another one that always caught my attention, and I'm glad Scream Factory came out with. I got that on Blu-ray. Have you seen that yet?
No, I haven't seen that.
It was we'll have to watch that sometime. That was a good one.
Did you now? Would you consider a movie like White Noise a horror film?
I haven't seen it. Is that the one with
Michael Keaton? Was that Michael?
Keaton?
Yeah, where he saw ghosts and stuff and the white noise.
Yeah,
because there's kind of a fine line between scary movies and a horror.
Because I mean, sci-fi.
Kind of like me. I wouldn't consider like a movie like Tremors.
That's like
it's a scary movie,
monster movie.
Yeah, but it's there's
like the Blob.
Yeah, there's many categories.
Yeah.
Like to me, like what was that? The Day the Earth Stood Still. That's sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi. Yeah.
But a lot of places would put that in the horror section.
Yeah, because they would split it up like horror, sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if they just had a sci-fi section, that probably wouldn't attract.
Like here's a good story for you viewers out there. I don't know when you've seen it, but I know I seen it like the week after it came out, and of course, the internet existed, but I didn't hear all the spoilers and what people thought yet. Jason X. Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that movie.
A group of friends. There was like 4 or 5 of us. It was Jeff and like I don't know how many other people. We all went. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the first Jason movie in how many years? Well, how many years had it been? Because it was Jason Goes to Hell.
It was made in 2000. It was on the shelf in 2002. So Jason Goes to Hell was 93. So
I mean, there was a long time. So I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be good. All I seen was the movie poster. His
face and the
it was silver, and I'm like, okay, what is this? So we get in there, and I'm like, okay, where's this going?
Right.
Years later, it's in the future. Jason's in space, and I'm like, okay.
And the funny thing is, so they made that movie, and I remember Halloween 6. So I saw Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers in theaters, and that was one of the things they joked about. Michael Myers going into space when the radio host guy, kind of like the Howard Stern kind of character,
right.
That was something that they joked about.
Yeah.
And then here they are with Jason in space. It's kind of funny.
We're in the theater watching this, and it's getting, further and further, and then that machine technology that was on the ship that could heal people.
Yeah.
Jason falls into it. He becomes Super Jason.
I like the Uber Jason. That was cool.
Yeah.
I wish they would have done more with it.
Yeah.
Because the Uber Jason was only in it for what, maybe 10 minutes?
Maybe.
Around 10, 15-ish.
So, out of all the kills they did in that movie, one of my favorites was near the beginning when he shoves that lady's face in the ice shit and then bashes her head on the table.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
But even in the 2000s, DVD was out then. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you saw that in the video store, you know, that was around the time when they were switching from VHSs to DVD.
DVDs were expensive, too. Still.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, DVD had been around since, like, 97, 98.
Yeah. You know, we got good picture quality and sound, but I miss the days of the VHS tapes. I still have a lot of old VHS tapes that I'm not going to get rid of. I keep, like, the horror movie stuff. I got all the Friday the 13th up to Jason Goes to Hell on VHS. You know, all the Halloweens up to H2O.
Well, I kind of enjoyed the trailers on them.
Coming soon.
Yeah, or your feature
and they would always,
presentation.
like, you know, like you were in an action movie and you're going to see all these cheesy ass trailers for all these action movies that just are terrible.
Yeah, and you're thinking to yourself, did I ever watch those?
Yeah.
Probably not.
But I don't know. I have good memories of video stores. Like so my first video store experience was going to Hollywood Video. You went to Old Town Video.
Well, because it was closer.
Yeah, well, yeah, in Westville.
Yeah.
I never went there. I mean, because Hollywood was a little closer, but I went there after they went out of business. Had the movie sale. I bought Scream on VHS. I bought like Bride of Chucky on VHS, and what was the other one? I know there's Halloween H2O, I believe, on VHS. Okay. Yeah. Now, and I know you got a lot of wrestling stuff there too.
Yeah.
That was another thing the video store had. Yeah. All the wrestling stuff. For all the wrestling fans and nerds. You know, you had your classic Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, WrestleMania. This was before they sold this stuff. So you remember that WrestleMania set? And I think I sold it to you. Like the 1 through 13, the VHS set.
It was expensive.
Do you have that?
I still have it.
I was going to say, I sold a lot of my wrestling stuff to this guy.
Now, with the last VHS tape, like, I still buy VHS, but the last brand new one I ever bought was Final Destination.
I can see that, yeah.
Would you consider Final Destination to be a horror film?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know they kind of went off the rail for how many they did.
Yeah.
But...
Speaking of Final Destination, that's another movie series that they're talking about rebooting.
I have all of them.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that not the last one they did, but was it the last one where they looped it around and showed that it went back to the very first?
Plane, yeah. It was like number 5.
Yeah. I was like, when I watched that, I was like, holy shit. I was shocked because nobody ruined it for me. I seen it in theaters. And
I don't know. They rebooted. I don't see how they can make it any better than the first 3 in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I could do without part 4 and 5. But.
The thing about the way they market DVDs now and Blu-rays, 4K, whatever, you know, this kind of goes back to the idea of physical media versus digital downloads.
Yeah.
Now, they claim that the rise of digital media is taking over. There's still a huge part of people that are collectors, that are film aficionados, that would rather have the physical copy. Me including.
Yeah.
I want something on the shelf. Because essentially, think about this. Let's say the internet's down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Let's say that the website, like Vudu or something, shuts down eventually.
Yeah.
That movie that you bought, where does that go? I understand that like iTunes and things like that are never going to go away.
Yeah.
But that movie that you bought off of there for, you know, let's say a couple bucks cheaper, where does that go? If you have the physical copy, you can go over to your shelf, go, there you go, I'm going to go watch that.
Yeah.
Like PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, things like that, Netflix, Hulu, it's great to be able to watch certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a movie that you legitimately enjoy, you want to watch more than a couple times, or like for Amazon Prime, you can buy a movie on there.
Yeah.
But $5.99 each time, you don't own it.
Yep.
To me, digital copies, you don't physically own it.
To put it in perspective, we were talking about this earlier. We still have a family video for now.
Yeah, for now.
We'll see what happens. But we had 2 family videos. One shut down, so we still have a second one. And you're saying the new releases are what, $250 to rent?
Yeah, something like that.
If they have them in stock. You know, I was telling him that I've rented newish releases on Vudu for $5.99. Mm-hmm. So compare $5.99 and $250. Yeah, you have the convenience of all. You know, you push a button.
But that's $6.
Yeah.
You basically paid what you'd pay to watch in the theater.
Yep.
Movie tickets usually.
And we live in a small town kind of county. You know, we're not in some big city like Chicago or Indianapolis or New York or whatever. You know, it doesn't take us very long to get to a video place destination or any destination for that matter. You know, 5-10 minutes tops, we're there. So it's really no inconvenience for us. It's just, I don't know.
Well, the one thing that, it's kind of a little bit off topic, but the one thing that pissed me off when it comes to like digital media versus physical, a lot of things, like movies are an example, but like games or even like music.
Oh, I don't download games.
The thing that is not a good thing, certain games that are only coming out digitally, they're not coming out on a physical copy. They come out later on.
Like the Friday the 13th game?
Yeah.
That when it first came out, it was digital. And then, you know.
Oh, here I'll give you an example. Physical. Black Ops 4. Game came out in October. Mm-hmm. All the games up until now have always had a campaign in it. Mm-hmm. This one, there's no campaign. It's strictly multiplayer.
That's why I didn't get it.
That's why I didn't get it.
I don't do online gaming.
So, they claim, the company that makes Black Ops claimed that 70% of gamers did not play the campaign. They said in order to save money, they did away with it. Now, here's the thing. Mm. If that was the case, why is the game still $60? Mm. Why? I guarantee it did not cost them that much to add the campaign to this. I don't do multiplayer very often. That's why I bought all them games, for the stories. Mm-hmm. So, like when I go to Walmart and there's a sticker on the Blu-ray and it says Blu-ray DVD combo pack plus Vudu code. Mm-hmm. So you get all three. I've got tons of them in there. You know how many I've redeemed for the digital copy? 0.
Right.
I don't need it. It's not like I'm going to take my iPad on a trip and go, oh shit, if only I had my Vudu code.
Yeah.
I have Netflix and Hulu downloaded on it if I really want to watch something. So essentially, with anything, I think it's because technically, not our generation, but the generation afterwards is the last one that essentially went through the whole video rental, physical media thing, because essentially Blockbuster went out of business in 2009.
Yep.
Hollywood Video went out of business.
That was way before that.
Yeah. So essentially, like my mom and pop places, Old Town Video, they went out of business in 1999.
That was before that, yep.
So now you have Family Video is the only remaining, and then you have like maybe a few mom and pop places.
Yeah.
And then there is one Blockbuster left. One. It's like, it was in Oregon or something?
I think, was it Bend, Oregon?
Yeah, something like that. The only reason why is
they're coming out with a beer.
Yeah, it's hard for them to get stuff where they're at. Yeah. It's a very small area. And it's not necessarily just nostalgia talking. It's the fact that when you would go and rent these movies, like remember that movie, it was really bad, but to me it was so bad it was funny to watch. Dracula Dead and Loving It with Nielsen, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen. It wasn't a horror film, but it was still fun.
Like a horror comedy.
Yeah, it was a horror comedy. These movies, you would go into the store, and whether it was like, a 5-for-5 deal, or they'd offer a deal where you get like 2 movies and some popcorn or something, it was an experience. You had to get in your car, you had to leave your house. You got to talk to other people in the store that like movies. Yeah. Like there was always 2 or 3 guys that worked at a video store that were super knowledgeable, super really cool, and you'd walk in there and be like, "Oh, it's Jason. What do you got for me, man?" It was that connection.
I remember in high school, I always wanted to work in a movie store.
Same here. I tried to get a job at Blockbuster. Yeah. 3 months before I got the job, they went out of business. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah, I wanted a job at a movie store too.
Yeah, I'm a big movie buff. I went to film school. I'm all about it. I love movies.
I currently have almost 600 DVDs.
Yeah,
and then
dude,
almost 1,000 CDs and stuff.
I've lost count of how many movies I.
Because I have an app that keeps track of all the ones that I have. Because I'd go out places. One thing I figured out, like especially Family Video, they're doing the same thing Blockbuster used to do, where they'd sell off their previously viewed for like $5-6 a piece. You know. One horror film that I've always liked, but I guess you could sort of be like a thriller / horror, Identity, with John Cusack.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That movie, or 1408 with him and Samuel L. Jackson. I've always been a huge John Cusack fan. So when he was in a horror film, like what was that, The Raven?
Yeah.
He played a good Poe. He played
I
a good.
haven't seen that.
It's good.
I'll have to watch it.
He plays a really good Edgar Allan Poe. Speaking of that, why haven't they made more movies out of his books? I mean,
they did in the past, like your Roger Corman type movies, your Hammer films. I think they pretty much covered like the Telltale Heart. And all that stuff, but I don't know. Do you think audiences today would? I
think they'd appreciate it.
Like if there's a modern twist on it.
Yeah, well, like okay, here's another example. Why is it that every time a Stephen King film comes out, other than like Pet Sematary coming up, why do they invest the least amount of money into these damn things? You notice that?
So they can make money.
Seriously, almost everyone that
like
they
Pet
do.
Sematary and It, man, these people come in droves, especially It. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was like.
Like, did you ever see that movie Dreamcatcher?
It's been a long. I haven't watched it in a long time.
When I watched this movie when it first came out, you could tell that they literally spent the least amount of money on it.
It got panned pretty bad. I remember a lot of people didn't like.
Like it's almost as if they hired a bunch of college kids that they didn't have to pay them, because remember they used to do that during the 80s. Where they hired these unknowns.
Yeah, some of the best horror movies though are made on a budget. Halloween.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
But I mean, after so long, it's like okay. A lot of these movies that are obviously modeled after his books. For something that is so iconic of his writings, you would think that they would want to invest money into it. Versus like, okay, let's say they spent $100,000 on the budget. Well, and they're wanting to make this much at the box office.
They're banking off what they think they're going to make on a profit. So, I don't know how much they made the remake of Pet Sematary. I'll have to look that up, but I could foresee it maybe making 80-90 million. I don't think it's going to break the 100 million mark.
I had never seen it until a couple months ago.
The original Pet Sematary?
No. Oh. What was that movie I was telling you about that I watched? It's got the dude from Mighty Ducks in it. Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, Emilio Estevez.
Yeah, Emilio Estevez. The Mighty Ducks guy. Emilio! Maximum Overdrive, for it being when it was made, they spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, Stephen King directed that movie.
They did. You could tell that there was a lot of well-known people. There was a lot of cinematic effects. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously because he directed it versus somebody taking his story and directing it, obviously, is completely different. That's like saying when George Lucas sold off the rights for Star Wars, it's like, okay, when the main person's doing it, he's going to put as much time and energy into his baby versus, okay, I'm going to sell this off. And the person goes, okay, we're going to spend $5 million and we're going to make $50 million.
Yeah.
So they're obviously trying to maximize profits versus, what they have to actually throw into something.
Well, I don't know. The bad thing is studio interference. Like with the new Halloween, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it still has its mistakes. And a lot of fans that love the movie after coming out of the theater and then they watched it, a couple times.
You remember they bitched about the scene about the brownie? About the cops talking about their lunch? Why were they so mad about that?
My thing was, spoilers, you haven't seen the new Halloween. Check it out, by the way. My thing was, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is Laurie Strode. She should have died. I don't understand why they kept her alive.
Yeah,
that was,
I think so too.
Going into the movie, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reason to keep her alive. Either that or her daughter, the Judy Greer, her character. One of the two should have died. So they had three ladies survive a horror movie, which is if you think about it, against the slasher history. It's odd because normally you're used to one woman survivor.
Well,
I mean, out of the three, I think one of them should have died. That's my only. And the Sartain character that. So what happened was the reason why they put Sartain, he was supposed to be the guy that caused that bus crash and Michael took escape. But in reality, and I think they filmed it, they had the idea for it. Laurie Strode, if you remember, you've seen,
yeah.
So, there was that, there was that scene where she was watching, all the patients getting on the bus. And she was outraised and drinking. Mm-hmm. Well, originally, she was supposed to cause that bus crash. Which would have made more sense. And then you wouldn't need that whole Sartain stuff. So
that wasn't necessary.
If they would have kept it that way, it would have been her fault. And then that would have been on her. And then that would have made more drama.
Well, because I see what they were trying to do. They were trying to make Sartain the new Loomis.
Yeah, but he's dead.
I'm sorry, but no matter how you try, you cannot replace Dr. Loomis.
Waste of screen time, waste of character.
You can't do it.
Yeah. Well, they could have brought Loomis back, but I'm not going to... There was that rumor of... maybe not a rumor, but a fan's dream, Kurt Russell being a new Loomis, but that ain't going to happen.
You know who else would have made a good Loomis? Anthony Hopkins. How would Kurt Russell work as Dr. Loomis?
Well, a Loomis-ish type character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
I could see. Well, yeah, I could see that.
But that was just a fan's dream. It would have been a cool.
Okay. Here's kind of a loop. One of my favorite horror movies of all time, John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yes, I love that movie.
Okay.
I read the book.
Did you ever see the second one with Bon Jovi?
No.
It's good. It's good. It's called John Carpenter's Vampires, Los Muertos.
Yeah, I forgot they had.
It's actually pretty good. Now here's.
Oh man.
John Carpenter's directed multiple different things. He did Escape from New York, Escape from L.A.
The Thing.
Yeah. I love John Carpenter's Vampires. Now when Los Muertos came out years later, I'm like, okay, this could be interesting. It's got Bon Jovi in it as the character, and I'm like, okay. I'm gonna go into this.
Was that a movie that you rented?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I don't even think it was in theaters. I think it was a direct-to-DVD.
Probably. Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's really not that bad. It picks up where the other one left off, kind of, where it's a different vampire hunter. Now, granted, dude from the first one, what was his name?
James Woods.
Yeah, James Woods. Perfect for that role. He was a smart ass, cuss like a sailor. Perfect. Now, when that movie opened up, they're killing off the vampires. They go back to that hotel, and the vampires just slaughter the shit out of everybody. They got hookers and blow and just everything everywhere. I'm watching this, and I'm like, it's action and horror, and both. This is awesome. And then we find out later on in the film that priest screwed them all over. And I'm like, okay, they're looking for the Bergio Cross, and he just screws everybody. I'm like, this is amazing. So when I found it on Blu-ray recently.
Oh, it's on Blu-ray?
Well, it was one of those where it was.
Oh, in like a set?
Yeah, it was one of the sets. It wasn't separate. So I watched. What was the one I watched recently? It was another vampire film. What was it? I can't remember. Basically, the premise is they robbed a bank or something, and they're in a town, and vampires take over. You know which one I'm talking about? I feel stupid because I can't think of it.
The only thing I could think of is 30 Days a Night, but there was no bank robbery.
No, it was... I don't remember what the hell it. Anyways, it came out. Was it? So, I don't know. Days of Darkness. I don't know something. But that's another thing. When it comes to the one thing I remember very vividly when it comes to monster films, because after a while they had what they called I don't know the exact term for it, but you know how you'd always see like 4 or 5 different versions of the Mummy, or you'd see 4 or 5 of like the Thing. Essentially, these weren't trademarked at the time. More than one, if a company wanted to make it, they'd be like, okay, we're going to come out with a film called Dracula. Because essentially, when they made these in the 70s and 80s, these weren't copyrighted, these weren't trademarked. So, like, when you go on Amazon, you type in Dracula, you may find one from 1984, 1976, and the original one, you know, the Universal Monsters.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the show The Monsters?
Yep.
Okay. I found these VHS tapes, and apparently they were called Grandpa Munster's Favorites. And they would have this, like, huge collection of horror films, like The Invisible Man, Frankenstein. Because, I mean, how many times have they redone Frankenstein, Dracula, what was the one... Oh, what was the one I seen years ago? Blade. You know, Blade.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Blade 1 and 2 were okay. Blade Trinity was awful. Nothing against Dude, but it's like, how do you take something like, okay, like today when we were in Walmart, I was looking at, you know, the different movies and stuff, and they had the collection of, you know, not Friday the 13th, but Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
When you would go, and I remember the covers, it was the original covers that come out on DVD. And do you remember that creepy cover they had for, what was it, 3 or 4, where it's this guy, he's looking in the mirror, and it's the guy. But
no, that's 2.
Is that 2?
Yeah.
That always creeped me out.
Yeah, because he kind of invaded, Jesse was the character's name. And you got that scene where when Freddy comes out of Jesse's body. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
You're all my children now.
Or,
that was
what was it, the New Nightmare?
Crazy one.
Where the cover has like an eyeball or some shit. That's when it got weird. When it started to get towards the end, like 5 and 6, that's when it just kind of got really weird.
Well, 4 was the Dream Child. Or no, 4 was the Dream Master, 5 was the Dream Child, and then 6 was Freddy's Dead.
Yeah.
Freddy's Dead just had, like, Freddy, you know, with his claws,
yeah,
you know, whatever.
Now, essentially 1 and 2 was when he was more serious. And then after that, he became the smart-ass telling jokes shit.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, like, you know, the YouTubers that I follow and everyone on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Killer Flicks, all that stuff, you know, a lot of people love the Dream Warriors. For me, I love the original. And I have the same gripe as everyone else says, the ending of the original is the worst part of the movie, but it is what it is. You know, they know they had a hit on their hands, I think, and so they wanted to have it open-ended to where they're going to have some sequels. The second one, that's where, you know, Freddy's still pretty creepy and serious. It just... the whole movie itself was like a big... I would say it's like a half horror / half gay porno kind of.
Yeah, I would agree.
S&M and shit. It was like so weird. So
yeah, 3
weird
is whenever he'd kill somebody, he always had a one-liner. Like when he smashed that.
Well, that was when he was comedic. Like,
yeah, remember when he smashed dude's face in the TV?
Yeah. Oh, the girl.
Yeah.
Welcome to Prime.
Yeah.
Bitch. Yeah, that was when he started comedic.
Yeah. And it was funny. I liked it. It was still creepy. It was still funny. And that's when I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's when you had the combining of Freddy and Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Because his natural, you know, acting presence is, he's a funny guy. So you had that merged.
Yeah. I think if they do another Nightmare, and if it's like another reboot, I think I'm hoping, anyways, that Robert Englund will play the role one last time.
I do too.
Just to do a send-off.
What did you hate? I know what I hated about it, but what did you hate about the remake?
Oh,
I have my reasons.
pretty much
I want to
everything.
hear yours.
I just hate how all these remakes look the same. It's always the same director, that Michael Bay. Who directed it? It wasn't Marcus Nipsel, was it? But they all look.
I don't remember.
Let me look it up. But they all look the same to me as far as cinematography, and all that jazz. The characters, I didn't give a shit about the characters. I thought the acting was terrible. I didn't like Jackie Earle Haley as Robert Englund. I didn't like the way that Freddy Krueger looked.
Yeah, that was my biggest gripe.
It was CGI. I mean, you could tell it was CGI. I'm looking to see who directed Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, it's like the other thing that bugged me was like when, they went back to the school and they went to the, his supposed lair where he, attacked them kids and stuff. It was like they were retelling a story that we already knew. That, essentially I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to remake as if you had never seen one before. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, I understand what you're doing, but how can you take...
They're making it for the new audience.
Yeah, and I get that, but...
They're basically making these remakes for kids that have never seen the originals, kids that don't have that video store experience. I mean, you could watch these movies on TV all you want. You can get them from Vudu, but I think the hardcore, die-hard fans of your, Nightmare on Elm Street, your Friday the 13th, Halloween, Texas Chainsaws, Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead, all that stuff, is the video store generation.
Well, I think any time you have the idea of, like, when they brought up the script for the Friday the 13th, where they wanted it to base it in the 80s, which was perfectly fine for me. Is there really a need to... It's kind of like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to change things so much to make it interesting. Use the original formula that they've used a bunch of times and just tweak it for a new audience. You don't have to change the character and make him bigger or more sinister or any... Like, with the Friday the 13th one, Jason never took his victims back to a lair. He just killed them. There was no need to create a whole story of Jason. Yeah. We knew who Jason was. Even if you had never watched a Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th film, you know who he was. There didn't have to be a whole 20-minute documentary as to where he came from. Kind of like with the Rob Zombie one. It's like, okay, here's Michael as he was a boy. He flipped out and killed his family. And then part 2, you got that weird scene where there's like this fucking horse in a barn. And I'm like, what is this?
So, out of all the remakes, I do enjoy the Friday the 13th, the remake. I thought it was a lot better than Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, for sure. I thought it was better than the Texas Chainsaw remake and the prequel to the remake. Trying to think. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it does have its issues, but I liked how they kind of combined the first 4 Friday the 13th movies into one movie.
Yeah.
I was always kind of curious as to what a sequel to that movie would look like. I'm kind of sad that they didn't continue with that, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, any time you have different people take over, they have a different vision as to what they want it to be and what they want it to look like. Well, I'll give you an example. It's kind of far-fetched, but it kind of fits. You know who Mark Hamill is. Okay. Mark Hamill, obviously Luke Skywalker played the voice of the Joker on the Batman the Animated Series. You know, Mark Hamill's a legend. When they essentially described to him what they were going to do with the Luke Skywalker character after, you know, George Lucas got rid of it, sold it to Disney, so on and so forth, I can understand. I mean, he's basically voiced his distaste for what they've done. Harrison Ford wasn't real happy with what they did either with, you know, Han. So, okay, imagine how Robert Englund felt when he saw this. They're like, okay, this is a character that I made iconic, and this is what you're doing with it. I mean, granted, it wasn't his movies anymore to be in. They, you know, it was whatever. But for anybody who's even a casual horror fan, you could, like, with all the remakes of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres.
Yeah.
How many more of them damn things can you have? How many times could they tell the story? I mean, seriously, they had Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out in, like, what, 2000 something?
2003.
And then didn't they have Leatherface? Isn't that what it was called or something?
Well, so they had the, so here's the Texas Chainsaw timeline. So you had the original.
Yeah.
You had part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Part 3, what's called Leatherface. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface. Part number 4, which was the awful Next Generation. Then you had the remake, the prequel to the remake called The Beginning. You had Texas Chainsaw 3D. And then you had, Leatherface.
It's like, how many times can you retell this story, and especially how badly they retell it?
It's just a cash grab. I mean, they had obviously, whoever made Leatherface had the cheap rights for that stuff. So,
well,
they made a movie, and they made money.
There's certain movies that I've boycotted over the years. And it falls into that category of, like, okay, just as an example, when they announced that they were going to be possibly doing a new Gremlins film.
Gremlins 3.
That did not take off,
I don't think
thank
that's
the Lord.
Not yet, anyways. But the thing is, if they do a third Gremlins, I think it's going to have all the original people involved with the first 2 that are still alive. So,
well, I've seen, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I've seen where, and it's a good thing because of, like, the Scream Factory, and what's that other company that makes different ones that are special editions?
You got a lot. You got Vinegar Syndrome. You got Synapse Films.
With these companies that we normally would never get these otherwise. You know, like the Silent Night, Deadly Night. A lot of these films, if it wasn't for these companies making these special editions, a lot of these movies would be lost on VHS.
Well,
and there are still a lot.
Speaking of video store memories, and a movie I'd rent quite a few times just because it was so odd, so weird. The Horror House on Highway 5. I can't remember the director's name. It's one of the most fucked up horror movies I've ever watched in my life.
Never seen it.
So it was directed by a music video director back in like '85. And so I saw the title, and it kind of intrigued me. And then, like, the cover, I think it had, like, you see, like, a person's jeans and, like, an axe or something, and a house in the background. You know, everything else is black. And then you read the back of the box for the VHS tape, and you see, like, this Richard Nixon mask on the back. And it talks about, you know, kind of about what this movie is about. You haven't seen it?
No.
We'll have to. So, and I bought it on VHS when Hollywood Video went out of sale. I ended up buying it just because it's so weird, so odd. I'm like, this thing's never going to see the light of day for a DVD,
right? Or
even a Blu-ray.
It's just one of those films.
And I kid you not. So I go to the Days of the Dead horror convention over in Indianapolis. This is back in 2017. I kid you not. I think it was Vinegar Syndrome. I believe it was them, or Synapse Films, one of the two. I'll have to look. They had a Blu-ray of that movie. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's amazing.
I was like, this movie, that no one but me probably has ever heard of. And they put this thing on Blu-ray, but apparently it has a cult following. It's so odd. It has something to do with some crazy killer and Nazism and college stuff, and it's just nuts.
Well, you know what movie that I guarantee very little people even remember, and I think it wasn't that it was like bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just so obscure.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Shop Till You Die. You remember that one?
No,
it's a Christmas movie, and essentially it's about these group of kids that are in the shopping mall, and there's a killer. Yeah,
That's like chopping.
Something about where the premise is they accidentally get locked in the mall after hours, and there's like this serial killer on the loose.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, it's got the cheesy choreography, it's got the you know, the jump scares and things like that, and of course you have the stereotypical characters, the overly dramatic woman, the guy who thinks he's tough and gets killed first.
Yeah.
You know, it's the usual crap.
I'm not gonna lie, I love jump scares. I know people are probably tired of them. You know, they're cliche, but
they are.
I love.
Well, see, here's one's movies that freak me out, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
The Insidious films. I've only seen 2 of them.
Yeah.
But the first one and the second one, I remember I went to the theater and I'm sitting there with my ex at the time, and I have my popcorn and my drink and stuff.
Did you spill your popcorn?
I almost spilled my popcorn because
there's
just so much stuff that happens. Then I'm over there like, oh! I'm like, what the hell?
I saw the first Insidious twice in theaters.
I thought it was creepy.
People.
I think they're all creepy, to be honest.
Yeah, it was. We all agreed. Like, we had goosebumps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably cheesy to a lot of people because they, like, near the end when you see the demon creature, like, oh, it's Darth
it looks
Maul.
It looks like Darth Maul.
But before you get to that stuff, it's creepy as hell.
Yeah, it is. The other one, what amazes me is after part 2, they essentially based the last 2 movies on the old woman.
Yeah, I got the last ski. I got that on Black Friday last year. I haven't watched it
I
yet.
haven't seen either one of those.
3, I liked. I liked 3 a lot better than the second one, to be honest. But the first one's the best.
I know 3. I think 3 is on Netflix or Hulu or something. But it's the type of movie, and I don't know why, but I can't watch it by myself. Any of the Insidiouses, I can't. Even the first one. I know it's on there, and whenever I hear that damn song. Whenever I hear that damn song, Tiptoe, I'm like, I immediately, when I hear this shit, I'm like, just kind of like looking around like, oh God. Because it's a creepy song too. It was by Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
And it's a creepy song anyway, and Tiny Tim was creepy. So
I just think the soundtrack in general is pretty creepy, like in the beginning.
Yeah.
The violins or whatever.
And it was a low budget film.
Yeah.
So
now that would be a movie like back in the day if it didn't get a theater release. You'd see on direct to VHS.
Yeah,
you'd be like, I've heard this.
Yeah, like when the movie came out in theaters, it was called Insidious. I'm like, what in the hell is Insidious? And then I had saw no trailer.
Oh, I've seen the trailer.
But I hadn't. I know it existed, but I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a one-off where like we were in Champaign. And we looked at the list of movies, and I seen the poster.
Was a boy in front of that?
Yeah, it was a boy, and I'm like, okay. So we went into it blindly. I had not seen no trailer or anything, and it's a good thing that I hadn't eaten B-dubs, because everybody knows when you eat B-dubs, you have a little belly discomfort. So it happens. But that's just some of our memories of just.
So how about to end this? So like what's your like top 10 movies? Whether it's horror, wrestling, action, comedy. What's your
ranging
top 10
from
movies
like best to worst, or just 10 altogether?
10 that you
would rent now.
Yeah, well that you rented back.
Okay.
Back in the day, like VHS.
Okay, number 1, probably Pee-wee's Big Adventure. 2, Tremors. 3. Probably Grosse Point Blank.
Okay.
That was a good one with John Cusack where he plays a hitman. 4. I'd have to say probably part 6 of Friday the 13th.
Oh.
Part 6 was always
Jason
a good one
Lives.
for me. I like that one. 5. What was that one movie? Universal Soldier. Did you ever see that
John
one?
Claude Van
Yeah,
Damme.
John Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
6. Let's see. Mighty Ducks, of course. 7. Three Ninjas. Very good one. 8. Ernest Scared Stupid.
That's a good one.
9. Let's see. What would be 9? Heavyweights.
Yep.
And of course, to end it, probably one of my favorite 80s, 90s films, Blank Check.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. That'd be my top 10, I think.
I would say for me, number 1 for me would be Return of the Living Dead. I love that movie. I think I rented that, I shit you not, probably like a couple hundred times from Hollywood Video. From there, it's just, whatever. I would say probably Children of the Corn Part 2. That's one that I rented a lot. Porky's, I rented that a lot. Revenge of the Nerds. I'm trying to think what's up. Night of the Demons was one that I rented a lot. The Burbs, I rented that a lot. Before that came out on DVD. Trying to think. I'll go with the wrestling one. I think one of the wrestling ones that I rented all the time was it Survivor Series 90? Was that the one with Hogan, Jake the Snake, and Demolition? Was it 90 or 90? Yeah, 90.
Yeah, it was 90.
90. So that was one I rented a lot, just because I was a big Hogan, Jake the Snake, Demolition fan at the time. American Gothic. That's one I forgot to talk about. That Scream. That was another one of those horror movies. I'm like, this movie is so weird. It's so obscure. No one's ever gonna release this damn thing on DVD or Blu-ray. And then Scream Factory released it last year on Blu-ray. I was like, what?
I was kind of shocked by that.
Yeah. So that was one. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 was one that I rented a lot.
And a lot of people didn't like that one.
I like it.
I thought it was okay.
That's one of my favorites.
Because essentially, it's, what was it, their uncle that was getting revenge? Wasn't that what it was?
The Sally character that survived in the first one.
Yeah, I like the cover of that
Franklin.
one. Where he's sitting there with got his cowboy hat on.
It's the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Like they're modeled like the Breakfast Club, but it's the Texas Chainsaw family.
Yeah.
What's some other Halloween? I think 4 and 5 were 2 of the Halloween series that I rented a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Halloween 5, you're watching now, obviously it has its major flaws, but that was one of my guilty pleasures. Child's Play 2, I think, was another one I rented a lot. So I don't know if that's in or not, but that's just a lot, that I rented. I want to throw one out there. The Video Dead was one. Spookies was another one. I remember they used to show that on USA Up All Night. And my last one will be, and I have it on VHS. I bought it when our local Hollywood Video went out of business. The American Scream. That's one that's not on Blu-ray or DVD. It's weird. It's a weird horror movie that came out in, I think, 85, 86, maybe 87-ish. But, yeah, I mean, that's my list.
Oh, I finally figured out what the name of it is.
What?
It's called Free Domain.
Oh.
All these companies could essentially take a character or a subject, and because it was free domain, open domain, they could make their own. Like Godzilla, there's literally like hundreds of different Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
Some of them are official, some aren't. There's a lot of horror films that they came out. I seen one time, and it was called The Dead Lives, and essentially the cover looked like Scream. Seriously, it was a guy in the Scream mask.
Yeah.
And it was. Do you remember those like DVD packs where you'd have like 20 different horror films in it?
Yeah. From
like Kmart or Walmart.
Yeah.
And half 90% of the shit you'd never heard of.
Oh, I got Bloody Murder 1 and 2 which is a terrible at that Friday the 13th ripoff.
Yeah, that's why these movies got made, because there was no trademark; it was open domain.
Yeah.
So, like, you'd find the big compilation of these things. And I'm like, when the hell did this thing come out? And I looked at it, and it was like 1995. I'm like, I don't remember this. Knew nobody in it. So, you know. But anyways, thanks for watching. Like this video, hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll see y'all later.